What's going on, boys? Today we are talking a bit about a bunch of things, all centered around change. To start, while we are creatures of body and mind, I think you'd agree our more significant part, or what makes us significant, is our sentience. We are biology, but we are also consciousness, and the latter part is a lot more important. I was watching a video earlier about brain organoid computers, and how one, computers run using human brain tissue learn a lot faster even than AI and machine learning do, and are far more effective, but they also exhibit some odd behaviors that maybe shouldn't be unexpected or odd, considering you're running a computer using human brain tissue, and we don't understand our brains. Like, we're supposed to understand the fabric of our universe, but we can't figure out exactly how dreams work. Just on a human level, that doesn't make you question anything. You don't think that's one of the first things maybe we would try to figure out? The seat of our excellence, our power, or our divinity? That's something we still don't understand? And you're confused when brain computers are acting a little quirky. I don't give a shit about AI development or the horrors AI is probably going to wreak on our species. Bring it on. Let's see it. Get it moving. But brain computing bothers me a whole lot. And one of the comments I read sums it up well. Could you imagine yourself, your entire self, as nothing but a component of a chip that isn't allowed to die, whose only purpose in existing is to run a Discord moderator's computer while he jerks off to cam girls? Now, that would normally fall under the umbrella of dread that gets my dick hard, but there's something divine, in my opinion, about human sentience. And seeing, not even seeing the possibility, but knowing this is already happening on a small scale and is going to get worse, the biomechanical sentience slavery we are quietly getting caught up in. That's Satan, that's the devil, that's evil. Trying to turn sentience into capital in that way, in such a direct way. This is one of the points change as a force, as a doctrine, and as a state of mind comes in. Now, you know Stalker Anomaly is one of my favorite games. Again, completely free, runs on a potato. I completely recommend you try it. Clear Sky used to be my go-to faction. And in Anomaly, while there are a few mechanical differences, factions aren't that different. They're more for a state of mind you want to get into while playing the game. So Clear Sky, for me, was the scrappy combat researcher mindset. After them, I found myself playing Mercenaries more. Their mindset being money. Killing the most people to get the most money, to get the most interesting stuff, to play, in one point of view, the most interesting ways. But recently, I've been playing Renegades. Renegades are interesting because ideologically, they're united by no set of values or ideals other than completely irrational destruction and self-destruction. Even bandits have a sense of order, hierarchy, culture, rules, and camaraderie. There's a level of low nobility to them. Renegades are stalkers from every faction who are so foul, so evil, so sadistic, they've been run out of every other faction, including the bandits. I mean, the bandits don't really work with them. They barely tolerate them because they have to. And renegades wouldn't even be a faction unless there were a reason. Sort of the way loners are a faction. They're more like a confederation of independents working together to secure or to keep safe their independence. It's weird, it's a collection of individuals. Renegades are similar, except they grouped up only because, and only so long as, there is a group they need to organize to kill. I mean, there are what I would consider renegades operating in every faction. The only difference is they haven't joined renegades proper yet because they haven't been thrown out, or because they don't have a reason to join the renegades yet. But renegades are just evil. Just cruel slash and burn. The lowest of the low. So violent, there isn't even order amongst themselves. There's no connection between them except a desire to harm, which of course is taken out on each other much of the time. So little is their connection to each other. And my most recent Renegade run has been different from pretty much every other run I've done, which, despite all the factions being essentially the same, just flavor, it's very interesting how different runs as each different faction are. So in this Renegade run, it's been a cyclical culling. Methodically wipe out the entire map. Drop numbers from what should be a little over 600 to around 40 people operating in the zone. That's how much death went on in this Renegade run. Followed by letting factions experience a resurgence, populate a small area of the zone, and then the renegades coming in and culling them again to collect their gear, because renegades don't really have their own gear. I mean, they do, but you don't have access to it as a renegade, which is odd. But if you want good shit, you have to farm humans. And the reason I bring up renegades in relation to brain computing is there are moments you need to burn everything down. You can't just try to make things change slowly. You can't wait for change to overtake whatever it is and turn it into sand. There are moments you have to take an active role in destroying something because it's evil. Well, what if we develop brain computing in this direction? No. Well, what if we slow down development of brain computing? No. What if we use animal brains in brain computing? Maybe, but probably not. I'm gonna say no. Consciousness is not something that should be degraded and enslaved in that way. Renegades are in my mind when I'm thinking about this, because while they are brutal and cruel and completely disordered, chaos, when you burn systems down to their foundations, you lack order, but you receive unbridled consciousness. And that time idea we discussed last video has been on my mind on and off for a few years now. Something one of my professors said to me, he was an INFJ, that really fucked with my head the first time I heard it, was a clock is a ruler. We experience time as a linear movement, as if we were, or all we could do was move down the length of a ruler, but in reality, time is static and it can be measured. You can go or use parts of a ruler you've already passed. And that armor that travels not through space, but through time, but is traveling even though it appears to be static. It's not moving, but it is traveling through time. I'm going to say this now so I don't forget it, but consciousness is our spiritual body or self that is attuned with the way reality, quotes, actually works. Bodies move around a plane and die, but consciousness always fills up a noosphere. Our bodies inhabit what we think is an objective reality. Our consciousness inhabits the subjective, more actual reality. And you can make the argument biology gives rise to consciousness, but you can make a very real argument that consciousness gives rise to biology. Not that the objective reality goes up and creates a fake subjective, but that a real subjective comes down and creates a fake objective. It's a wag the dog situation. And the Elder Scrolls lore, deep lore, explores these ideas better than maybe you think it should. I've heard the Elder Scrolls lore described as psychedelic fantasy, and I think that works. And I think that's the reason, once you are aware of the Elder Scrolls lore, the games themselves almost feel unsettling. Because when you are playing an Elder Scrolls game, you are inhabiting what appears to be objective reality and pursuing, for the most part, objective reality type goals. Helping a farmer find its cows and shit like that. There seems to be a rhyme and a reason to this universe and its laws. In reality, the Elder Scrolls universe, quotes, follows no laws whatsoever. Time and space and the continuum can overlap, they can rewrite themselves, they can splinter, they can forcibly force themselves back together, and people in these timelines can understand this isn't the way things were, but this is the way things are now, and this is the way things have always been, even though I can clearly remember things not being this way. These are called dragon breaks in the Elder Scrolls lore. Moments in already unrestrained, strange, horrifying extended universe snaps itself. And I strongly encourage you to look into videos on Elder Scrolls Deep Lore. It's interesting stuff. But the point here is what these people in the Elder Scrolls universe think is a solid reality is actually founded on vapors of a larger incomprehensible process that is, or that are, subject to change fundamentally or disappear entirely at any time. Generations of peasants and farmers, this what seems to be solid reality, is built out of vapors that could disintegrate, that could decide we don't like the way this reality works. We're just going to change everything right now. And I think paying attention to Elder Scrolls lore is important for us because that is the way our reality works. We are confident in an objective reality because we haven't lived to witness our equivalent of a dragon break yet. That's why I say the Elder Scrolls games are a bit unsettling once you understand the lore, because everything you're participating in is an illusion that is subject to change. And that's almost never brought up directly in at least the later games. I know Morrowind. I've played Morrowind, but I don't read in Morrowind. I know Morrowind is a little more in that shit than the later ones are. But what you see isn't what is. There's not an objective reality. This, what you think is an objective reality, is built out of subjectivity. Like particle entanglement or quantum entanglement, I think it's called. Particles get entangled and then ignore every single law of space and time we know of, and we don't know why. Particles behave differently when they're being observed, and we don't know why. The universe seems like it comes up with its own rules as it goes along, like it's annoyed with us for trying to figure these things out, and so it has to come up with shit to keep us satisfied, while breaking its own rules whenever it feels compelled to. But it's not breaking its own rules because it doesn't follow rules. We are trying to impose rules on it, and then we get upset when those rules aren't followed by the thing we're imposing the rules on. All this to say, consciousness is what matters. Consciousness, a subjective phenomenon that isn't understood, is how we interface with reality meaningfully. Consciousness is what persists, not biology, because consciousness is what matters. Again, it's not consciousness rises up out of biology into a subjective before coming back down into an objective to die. Subjective consciousness comes down into biology until biology dies, at which point consciousness returns back up into subjectivity. What we think is real only as long as whatever it is decides what seems to be real is going to be real. This is all a subject to change illusion. Now, normally I err on the side of don't sweat it, because even if we don't understand it, that doesn't mean we aren't part of it and participating in it. It being whatever's actually going on. But I think attuning yourself to change, to that subjectivity, to that subject to change, and keeping the human mind, at least, on a throne is important, at least for now. Trying to chain consciousness, divinity, the great subjective, down into dirty, disgusting, malicious objective is literally Satan. It's hell. You're holding what is divine down into the lowest, most humiliating, depraved, disgusting depths. And that's one of the reasons I fucking hate people who take consciousness for granted and don't explore it. They, on no level, want to understand or get in touch with their own divinity. They just want things. Things that don't matter now, much less will matter when they're turned into dust. When you're dead. Your biological body is dead. And pray to God you've developed your consciousness enough to do whatever needs to be done when your biological body dies. The ultimate points in all this being change, not just as a naturally occurring force, but as destruction with agency toward the end of, if not uplifting, then at least saving consciousness from the most base slavery. And then the fact this reality isn't soil or the foundation, but instead one strand of vapor we perceive as solid only because we are moving through time linearly. And I know when people are talking about that, they view time or talk about time as this static thing that you can see all of. I'm not sure I'm on board with that, but I am on board with, again, the fact we live for such a short period of time. We might not be alive in our biological forms to see these dragon breaks or fundamental rippings of what we think is reality. In summary, say yes to AI. It doesn't need our help. It'll wipe us out when it's sick of us. Say no to biological computing because you don't want to be owned by a Discord moderator. Revere sentience. Try to get in touch with it. Try to propagate it or proliferate it. I think that's one of the reasons we're here. We're here to perform a job for one of however many gods, and we just happened to end up with this one and its tasks for us. But revere biological sentience and try to get in touch with change and time. But that about rippity wraps this one up. I hope you enjoyed watching, because I certainly enjoyed making it. Like if you enjoyed, because it helps me out a lot. Subscribe if you haven't, because we do this shit sometimes. And comment your thoughts, because I love hearing from you. Not sure what to ask this time. Thanks again for watching, everybody. Really, really a lot of fun on this channel. So much fun, in fact, you can think what's in front of you is fun, and then in however many years, or even in the next moment, it can be shredded and reformed into something completely different, maybe even beyond your current understanding, but your consciousness will carry you through, maybe. But that's how much we have on this channel, and I look forward to doing this with you guys again in the future.